This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Ben Sears at LazarusHP05 on AOL Instant Messenger.
What? Was that really your AIM?
Yeah.
Wow.
In high school.
Okay.
That was before I knew any better.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Oh, man. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic via genre, trope, movie, or show each episode. You can find more of our work at ObsessiveViewer.com. You can also like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer. And also you can support us on Patreon at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. At the minimum rate of $1 per month, you get access to exclusive recordings specifically for Patreon supporters. I'm your aforementioned host, Matt Hurt, and with me today is recurring co-host and contributing reviewer for ObsessiveViewer.com, Mr. Ben Sears. How's it going, Ben?
Pretty good. I'm excited to talk about some great movies.
Yes. Would you say that it's I probably
wouldn't.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going to say, I probably wouldn't.
To podcast about these movies, would it be to live, or would you suggest that listeners of this episode should listen to it between the hours of 5 and 7?
No, I probably still wouldn't.
Okay, yeah, me neither. Okay, well, anyway. So today on the podcast, we're going to be continuing our Ebert's Great Movies List review series, in which we each pick a movie from the Roger Ebert's Great Movies List. This is part 7. We're going to be covering 1952's Ikiru and 1962's Cléo from 5 to 7. And not to jump ahead or anything, but there's going to be a nice surprise when we pick our titles for part 8. So,
oh boy,
leave you guys.
Don't skip ahead.
Yeah, you please don't skip ahead.
We'll know whether you did or not.
We will. Although, it would be nice if you do skip ahead, because I really put a lot of time into making those timestamps on the show notes. So we're going to review Ikiru and Cléo from 5 to 7. But first, there's some news that broke this week, the day after Tiny and I recorded the latest episode of Tower Junkies, so we could not include it in that episode. But there are a few big Stephen King things happened related to movies and TV. First of all, just to plug it, you can check out Tiny and My's reviews of the Stand miniseries on CBS All Access on Tower Junkies. Check that out. We did 3 episodes all about that miniseries. I think 3 episodes. It was something, but we're on Obsessive Viewer now. So, the news that broke, there were 3 things that came out that I'll just recount real quick, and then we can talk about the kind of big Apple TV Plus one. One is that Edgar Wright is working on an adaptation of The Running Man, which is going to be more closely to, close to the book than the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie was. Have you seen or read The Running Man?
A very long time ago.
Okay, I've not.
Grade school.
Yeah, I haven't seen it or even read it, but yeah. But Edgar Wright, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
And then the second thing, I don't know. Creepshow was renewed for season 3, so that's cool. But also, Stephen King, on the kind of press tour for Lisey's story, which we'll talk about here in a second, hinted or said that he and J.J. Abrams are working on a horror anthology show called Tiny Horrors or something. Nothing confirmed or anything, but that just has me excited because I like anthologies and I like Stephen King. So look forward to my Stephen King anthology spinoff podcast. And then the third thing that was announced, and this is the big one that we'll talk about in more detail, is they announced the casting and the information about the first look images and everything about Lisey's story, which is going to be an 8-episode miniseries on Apple TV Plus, adapted from Mr. King's novel of the same name. And the adaptation has every episode of the adaptation is going to be written by Mr. Stephen King. So I'm excited about that. Ben, how did you feel about this news? And do you have any ties to Lisey's story or any knowledge about it? I'm pretending that you didn't answer that off mic.
I had no idea what it was, what it's about. I still don't really, but I'm excited to check it out. I'm the Obsessive Viewer's resident Apple TV Plus
right
guy, so I'll probably check it out when it comes out.
Nice. Yeah, honestly, so Lisey's story is a bit of a blind spot for me, if I'm being honest. So I haven't read the book. But what I do know about it is that it's one of, if not his number one favorite book that he's written, Stephen King's favorite story that he's written. And it's going to star Julianne Moore, Clive Owen, Dane DeHaan, Joan Allen, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Ron Cephas Jones. They'll all be in it, and yeah, it's going to be from Bad Robot and J.J. Abrams on Apple TV Plus. They haven't announced the release date, which is crazy to me.
I think they said sometime in summer.
Yes, and that makes me really anxious because the funny thing is, Tiny and I just finished our whole big review series on The Stand, which The Stand is a mammoth of a novel. And it had an adaptation that we reviewed, and then the new adaptation that we reviewed. All told, we did 8 episodes worth of, on Tower Junkies, worth of The Stand coverage. And that took us 8 months. And I think 8 months. Yeah, probably. It took us a long time, essentially. Not 8 months. I think 8 months to record each one because we did that in a vacuum. But anyway, it was a very long journey and everything. And then the day after we finished that, and I was like about to breathe a sigh of relief and think like, oh, it's going to be nice to do like one-off episodes and finally get back to just like reviewing a novel one week and then maybe a mini series another week or maybe a TV show or whatever. And then they announced this. It's like, okay, it's going to be 8 episodes. There's a novel that we'll have to review first, and it's going to be sometime in the summer. So, yeah, so that's going to be fun. Yeah. So I don't know. It should be exciting. How, as someone who's not familiar with the story or anything, how excited are you about it? Are you interested in it? And what's your history with Stephen King? We don't have to go too deep into that because, of course, this is the Obsessive Viewer, not Tower Junkies.
I have read at least the first 2 Dark Tower books.
Nice.
I know I've read at least half of the third. I might have finished that. I know I stopped midway through either the 3rd or 4th book, but I can't remember which now. And that is it as far as the books. Movies, I just watched The Shining the other day.
Nice.
I had seen it before, but let's see, Shawshank Redemption. I think that might be about it.
Okay.
I'm sure there's more, but that's all I can think of off the top of my head.
Nice.
But yeah, I'll probably check it out. I don't do a whole lot of TV these days, but
same.
You probably said this already. Is it a limited series or?
Yes, it'll be a limited series, so only 8 episodes. Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I can do that.
Nice. If timing works out, we can have you on Tower Junkies to talk about it with us.
Sure.
We'll figure out logistics off mic. So that's the latest news. But I don't really have much else in the way of news or anything. So should we dive into our Ebert's Great Movies reviews?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So, of course, at the top of this is our 7th installment of our Ebert's Great Movies List review series. Kind of to read the quote from Ebert regarding this review or this essay series that he spent a lot of time writing was, one of the gifts a movie lover can give another is the title of a wonderful film they have not yet discovered. Here are more than 300 reconsiderations and appreciations of movies from the distant past to the recent past, all of movies that I consider worthy of being called great. So obviously the concept for this review series is that Ben and I each select a single movie from Roger Ebert's Great Movies list and then review and discuss them both in a special series of podcast episodes on the Obsessive Viewer. So, having said that, I'm going to roll the jingle thing, the drop, the something, I don't know, the bumper music for this segment of the podcast.
No name is more synonymous with film criticism than Roger Ebert's.
Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women, and children.
People say do film critics have too much power?
For those who can hear me, I say, do not despair.
We can help a movie. We can help a movie by sharing our enthusiasm. We can't necessarily hurt a movie that is destined to be a big hit anyway.
You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure.
And then Roger Ebert gets up.
What I find very offensive and condescending about your statement is nobody would say to a bunch of white filmmakers, how could you do this to your people?
Democracy, let us all unite!
All right. Well, yeah, here we go. This is part 7, as I said. So we're going to be talking about Ikiru and Cléo from 5 to 7. And Ben, as we usually do on this, we're going chronologically from release date. So I have made sure to make the first one be my pick. So Ikiru, are you excited to talk about Ikiru?
Very excited.
All right. So kind of give a brief overview. Ikiru is directed by Akira Kurosawa, who last time on this series of episodes, on part 6, we reviewed Yojimbo. And the plot summary is a bureaucrat tries to find a meaning in his life after he discovers he has terminal cancer. It stars Takashi Shimuro as oh my god, why can't I remember Watanabe, yes. Kenji Watanabe. And yeah, like I said, it's directed by the great and incredible Akira Kurosawa. So the reason that I picked this movie for this series, for this installment of this series, is specifically because if you guys remember from the last episode that we did on this, you had pitched your suggestion was Cléo from 5 to 7. I had not known anything about it. Mm-hmm. I was just kind of living in the moment of like, oh god, Yojimbo was so great. I love Kurosawa and everything. And then you said like Cléo's plot summary had something to do with cancer. And I was like, oh, cancer. He said cancer. So okay, Ikiru. I'm gonna pick Ikiru because it's about a guy with cancer. So that's the reason why I picked this one. And Ben, this was your second ever Kurosawa movie?
Correct.
Okay, how did you feel about it, and how did you feel about it compared to Yojimbo?
I think, at least personally speaking, I feel like for me and maybe a lot of other people, Kurosawa gets this reputation as a samurai director, or at least for the lay people, the neophytes, the people that aren't super familiar with his career. So I didn't know that he made a whole lot of non-samurai movies. I was actually kind of hoping that a samurai would pop out at some point and cut the cancer out of him or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's incredible. My initial reaction, and I'm blaming this on the sleepiness that I was fighting, was it was good in the moment. I really liked the first half. The second half kind of slows down noticeably, I would say, especially the last like 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And I was kind of annoyed at first at the last 45 minutes.
Interesting.
And we can kind of get into why a little bit later, but having a little more time for it to marinate with me, I appreciated that a little bit more.
Okay.
And especially after reading Ebert's essay on this. So,
Nice.
Yeah, really, really great, really solid, just really human story about something that I was struggling to think of any other films that have kind of mirrored what or the story that he was trying to tell here, but I'm sure there are just tons out there.
Yeah.
But I like the way that it was done here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny, because I had seen this movie once before when I was like a teenager. So,
Okay.
And okay, I've talked a lot about how okay, when I was a teenager and I was like formulating my movie like sensibilities and everything, I was very much into snobbish. Okay, this is a movie that I've never heard of that's high up on the IMDb top 250. So I'm going to watch this movie and I'm going to love this movie unconditionally.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that's when I was a teenager and seeing this movie, this was after I had gone through a lot of his samurai movies. Seven Samurai, I still count as my favorite movie of all time. That is blanket statement, the best film that I've ever seen. For a multitude of reasons that we'll get to because it's on the list. But I had also seen Throne of Blood and Yojimbo and Sanjuro and some of his other
Hidden Fortress, some of his other period feudal Japan samurai movies. Mm-hmm. And so going into a contemporary Kurosawa movie like this or High and Low or Stray Dog, which Stray Dog is fucking phenomenal. But going into that at such a young age, this movie is so much, like you said, it's a very human story, and it is a story that is so contingent on a human experience and telling a story through layers of pain and silence that, frankly, a 16-year-old Matt who had a fucking boner for samurai movies was not going to grasp at all. Right.
And so I didn't have many memories of this movie. I even counted it as a first viewing on Letterboxd when I checked into it. But yeah, all that's to say that this viewing of it just really, really hit home with me. It really resonated in a huge way. Mm-hmm. Just the way that the story plays out with Watanabe's whole experience of dealing with his diagnosis, and it's not so much him coming to terms with it or creating dealing with the drama of oh, I have cancer, so I'm going to die. It was more the fuck have I done with my life?
Yeah.
And how can I live my life in the last days of my life? That is the big blanket statement of the whole movie. And it really resonated with me and moved me, not so much because I work in an office job.
With a lot of papers.
With a lot of paper.
Stamping.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's so funny because I actually had, because I go into the office 3 times a week specifically to sort paper. That is specifically what I fucking do.
Yeah.
And it's not a lot. It's fine. I go in and work for a few hours and then go home and do digital filing and stuff and processing. But just a few weeks ago, we had this big thing where we had to mail out 17,000 letters. And I had to go down to the mailroom, get all 17,000 of these things, bring them up to my desk, and I shit you not, the reason that I had to do that was because I had to pull 3 out of that stack so that I could send them in a different way.
Oh no.
And it was fine. They were in order of zip code, so it was fine. I could find them easily.
Yeah.
But it's having that experience and then seeing Ikiru, which the set design is fucking gorgeous.
Right.
In that very crazy way, crazy busy way, because it's literally stacks and stacks of paper. And it's just so evocative of exactly what emotional state Watanabe's in his job.
Yeah, I mean, even before you really learn anything about him, you see his like office setup, and all the papers behind him and on his desk and just everywhere, and you really get a sense for what his life is like, just without even before any kind of plot develops or you learn more about him.
Yeah,
it's a really nice way of just establishing this character.
Absolutely. And it's just such a great introduction. And the movie is kind of, and we'll do like a separate spoiler section, I'm sure. But the movie's separated into a few different sections.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because each act is kind of ushered in by in voiceover narration. How'd you feel about that kind of storytelling technique, that narrative technique that was employed in this movie?
I was on board with it.
Nice.
I don't know of a better way to frame the story or kind of inform the audience of the situation or, that without a voiceover.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too like intrusive.
Right.
Like it's really easy with voiceovers to be too distracting or too redundant even. Yeah.
There's something to the way that it really introduces us to each segment of the movie, and it's just the right amount of that, because it's not overbearing, it's not pervasive throughout the movie. It's just like an introductory thing, like this is your like literally they say this is our protagonist. He's got some bad news, and he's gonna try to make good news out of it or whatever. They doesn't say anything like that, but anyway, in each section is kind of introduced in a different way that way, but like the kind of tone of that has this cadence to it or this tone to it that's like it almost makes it kind of sound, and maybe I'm projecting onto it, but it kind of sounds like a little bit of a cautionary kind of tale. Like I don't know exactly, like there may be a specific like theatrical term for it, but it has like this thing that it reminds me of oh god, there's a movie that it reminds me specifically of, a more modern movie that it's so much so that I'm wondering if it was influenced by it, but I can't place what the movie is. But anyway, it might come back to me, it might not. But it just has this like this is Watanabe, this is his life, this is him facing what is probably going to be the end of his life, and it kind of has this cautionary tale to it, like. It's almost like it's turning to the camera and saying to us like, what's your life like? Like,
right. What have you done?
Yeah, what have you done? Yeah, I don't know. So maybe I don't know if did that come across to you at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so you said something about were you talking about like influences and everything? There's one movie in particular that this viewing of this movie of Ikiru made me really reflect on the influence it had on it. So, have you seen Y Tu Mamá También?
No.
Oh, interesting. Okay. It reminded me of that.
Okay.
Okay. Just this, because a big portion of this movie is Watanabe kind of wandering the city. And he comes across, like he meets a writer who, like, he tells his story to him, and then the writer takes him out on a night on the town.
Yeah.
And then from there it goes into, it transitions into him spending time with a coworker or employee that he had, and then spending more time with her. And there's just something, I don't know, it just feels so. It reminded me so much of Alfonso Cuarón's Y Tu Mamá También, which I just saw like a couple years ago. Anyway, yeah. So,
So
yeah,
this was your first viewing since you saw it as a teenager?
correct.
Okay.
Yep. And it's widely regarded as one of Kurosawa's best movies. And I'll agree with that. I do think it is. I mean, spoiler alert, I rated it 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
I might drop it down to 4.5, but that's all semantics and kind of just not really
Right. What's the
relevant.
difference?
But, exactly. Well, half a star, but but yeah. But I can't really quantify why or anything.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating because in terms of Kurosawa's his breadth of work, like he directed 30 movies. This movie came out in 1952. This was 2 years after Rashomon, which is highly regarded and a heralded movie, and rightfully so. And then it was also 2 years before Seven Samurai, which is a just bona fide masterpiece. And it's incredible to me, just the output that he had.
Yeah, that's a pretty great run.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what about Ikiru, if anything, in terms of the story and everything, did anything resonate with you? Did it hit you in any specific ways, or how did you feel about the kind of story in particular?
The story just played out just very naturally. I didn't think about this until after the fact, but it was like, I feel like any Hollywood movie would take this story and just play up the schmaltz.
Yes.
And just make it all about spectacle and just forget about this guy and focus on like fixing his relationship with his family.
Yes.
Or just finding love or something. Just any kind of just surface level schmaltz. And I'm really glad that it didn't go in that direction. He basically just, at least in that first section, he just goes out and gets drunk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, the dialogue was great. Yeah.
Takashi Shimura, the way, I don't know how much of this is an affectation. Well, I know it's not it's an affectation because I've seen him in other movies, but the way Watanabe speaks, and it's this hoarse, like he's barely audible.
Right.
I love that choice because it just really, evokes the pain that he's in.
Yeah, he's like, it's a very surprisingly kind of physical performance.
Yeah.
He's like, anytime he's walking, he's just really slouched over and just moving very slowly. There's this scene where he requests a song from the piano player.
Oh, that scene is so great.
He starts singing along, and you can barely tell that he's moving his lips. Like at first, I couldn't tell if he was singing or if someone else was, or
me
just
too.
how it was working. But yeah, he sings just so well without even really moving his mouth.
Yeah.
So,
and that scene is just, it's heartbreaking and it's beautiful and it's just, it is incredible. There's also some techniques that Kurosawa uses in terms of like camera placement and everything like it. I've talked about this before. Like the way that he fills a frame is a master stroke every frame.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of scenes that really stood out to me. One is in the, I don't think it was that piano bar. It might have been that piano bar, but it's like a scene in like a bar or club that he's in. And it's like the camera is facing up at a mirror that's above them. And it's just the way that it plays with that perspective and then switches to like ground level and everything is just, it just looked very pretty.
Yeah. I noted that too. The camera was really impressive in this. And that I think I did note that shot. It kind of starts out as a close up on the piano, and then it kind of glides back to him, I think, and then it moves, maybe not in the same moment, but later in that scene, it does kind of go back and just angle up towards the ceiling. Yeah, I was really impressed with that. And I noticed there was a couple conversations that occur that are very close up, and they happen with the two Watanabe and whoever else he's talking to, like the guy in the hospital who's telling him about what to expect.
Yeah,
that, and I think the female coworker, there's a moment there, and just the way that he fills the frame with almost exclusively just their two faces.
Yeah,
it was really impressive, and just a really great way to block that, and just to fill the frame and make it interesting. Just this conversation that they're having. Yeah.
When when we see him kind of overseeing the site that he is working on, essentially. I'll be vague for spoiler's sake, but when we see that, we get kind of a signature Kurosawa rainfall scene. That's a big trademark of his. I think I said it last time that it's John Ford made a remark to him about it. And anyway, listen to part 6 for that. But like the second that happened, because this movie doesn't really have that Kurosawa flourish in terms of visuals like that, except for a couple of like what we've described, and the set design and everything, and the kind of meticulousness of that. But in terms of his regular trademarks and everything, like the rainfall and the weather effects, we don't get a lot of that, except for that one scene. And kind of on the surface, you can I could see like viewing that as being like, okay, well, there's the Kurosawa rainfall scene, there's the Kurosawa weather scene, like we just need to check that box. But I mean, just as soon as I saw like the rain falling and everything, and Watanabe walking without the umbrella, as someone rushes up to him with the umbrella, just all I thought was, man, no one can capture rain on film, like water in a rainfall on film, like Kurosawa could. Like, it's so beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. How did you feel about his Watanabe's relationship with his son, and also the way that the movie kind of it breaks from, well, I wouldn't say it breaks from its convention to do this, but briefly it does break apart a little bit, or in terms of employing flashbacks and flashing back and forth to kind of show and tell the story of Watanabe as a father. How did you feel? Like, did that particular section, did that hit with you, or did you have any problems with it, or how'd you feel about it?
I appreciated it. Yeah. His son is kind of introduced as a real asshole.
Yeah. Talk about an opening scene.
Yeah, like, really.
Jeez.
So I appreciated the way that it unfolded, and the way that it kind of developed. I'm kind of blanking on the specifics of these flashbacks, but
with the son,
yeah,
like there's the baseball game, and his mother's funeral. Yeah, like the kind of one that stood out to me was the baseball game, where he feels like he seems almost uncomfortable. Watanabe does with giving him support, and everything. Like he kind of has this prideful kind of like, that's my son thing to the guy next to him, and then like he has like an error or something, and then the guy next to him is like, what a fucking idiot. And it's just like this weird, like, it kind of showcases how, I guess, out of touch with parenting he was, or how ineffectual of a parent he was, to him. But yeah, I don't know.
Man, I'm sorry. I'm kind of blanking on that scene. So, full disclosure, we were originally supposed to record last night. Yeah. And in the meantime, I was forced. I told you this would happen.
Yes.
I was forced to watch Grown Ups 2. last night. And so now
I'm sorry.
That's all of Kurosawa has been blanked from my mind, and now all I can think about is Adam Sandler and Deer P.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, so what did you think of the scene where Watanabe has the deer run into the house and pee all over his son, or whatever happens in Grown Ups too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, in terms of, and then we can kind of go into spoilers to talk about that third act. How'd you feel about that, the kind of relationship or the mentor-mentee ship, companionship that arises between Watanabe and the young woman?
I enjoyed that one. Yeah, I liked all of their scenes together. And I like the way that her character is introduced.
Yeah.
And just their chemistry together is great. Remind me again, does he convince her to stay on board at the job, or
no?
Okay.
No. She tenders her resignation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or does she I don't know. I'm trying to come up with some kind of plot development from Grown Ups.
Yo, I gotcha.
No. No, I liked their scenes together. Nice. They were fun.
There's a certain like passage of time that happens in regards to his kind of, it's not a romantic relationship by any means, but it's kind of this overbearing kind of thing that it becomes. She becomes his kind of life raft in a way.
Yeah.
Like basically the movie is him trying to find meaning at the end of his life and try to find something to leave behind and everything, because he has a fractured relationship with his son, which that was particularly just really heartbreaking to see. Like there's that scene where they're I think they're having dinner, and it's when Watanabe's about to tell him like, oh hey, I've got cancer.
Yeah.
But the way that it plays out is it's so strongly written in terms of just this fractured family dynamic, because his son and his son's wife or girlfriend, whichever, don't, like, they assume one thing, they don't give him an opportunity to say his one thing because they just assume the other thing, and it almost sounds like a comedy of errors kind of thing.
Yeah, but
it's more just like this just unmendable fracture of communication within this family, and it's heartbreaking to see. It is absolutely heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Sorry, backtracking. The scenes between him and the coworker.
Okay.
That's another thing that I feel like any other Hollywood movie would do, is try to make them into a romantic couple.
Yeah.
So I'm real glad that it didn't go that route.
And I haven't seen this in a long time, but it kind of makes me wonder if that particularly influenced Sofia Coppola with Lost in Translation.
Okay.
Because I can kind of see some parallels there, but I don't know.
Okay. That's one I haven't seen, unfortunately.
Well, damn.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Do we have any other thoughts, or should we go into spoilers for that third act?
I don't think so.
Okay. So before we do that, how does this compare to Yojimbo? Which one did you like more, and what are you looking toward for your next Kurosawa movie?
Can you compare this to Yojimbo?
You really can't.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to is the rewatchability.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first finished this, I probably would have said no. Okay. I don't want to rewatch this, but given this conversation and realizing what I missed out on or skipped over, I guess, I don't know.
what Adam Sandler took away from you.
Yes. I would not mind rewatching this. So, thumbs up. I'm still excited to watch Rashomon. I don't know why.
Nice.
And I mean, obviously Seven Samurai too, but Rashomon I know is shorter, so that's got it going in its favor.
Yeah. Nice. So, would you put it on your great movies list?
I think so.
Okay. Nice.
Again, when I first finished it, I probably would have been more inclined to say no, but I think so. And especially reading Ebert's essay just made me appreciate especially the ending even more. So
nice.
Yeah, I think I'll say yes.
I am shitty, and I didn't read the essay for this movie or Cléo, so I can't really attest to that. But obviously, thumbs up for me. Definitely on my great movies list. Yeah. Should we spoil Ikiru?
Sure.
All right. Well, we are going to go into spoilers for Ikiru. If you want to jump ahead to Cléo from 5 to 7, check the show notes for timestamps to avoid the spoiler section. All right. So, here's the bumper for the spoiler section.
The dialogue created an atmosphere that really involved me. I was surprised how caught up I got in this movie and in the behavior of the characters. This is a very good movie that is sometimes hard to watch because of the level of violence and depravity that is unusual even among crime films. Words right. They have the words exactly right. And what I liked too was the stylistic freedom they gave themselves.
All right, and we are spoilers on for Ikiru. So Ben, you mentioned that the last 45 minutes or so didn't really mesh well with you. Is it just from the moment that he dies? And
yes,
it's all kind of the wake that occurs after that, essentially.
So I liked at the moment of the wake, I liked when the business guys were like talking shit about him. And then I liked the mourners, the townspeople, the women coming in and just mourning the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And then they just sit in awkward silence. I really appreciated that. And the way that the opening of the movie paid that off.
Yeah. Yes.
So, not to mention the opening of the movie is pretty funny.
Yeah.
You gotta admit.
Yeah. Giving
Even
them the run around and pushing them off to different departments. Yeah.
Because I mean, I've never worked at a government agency, but I feel like that's pretty accurate.
And
I've especially never worked for one in 1950s Tokyo.
Right. And that's something that I kind of found really interesting is that, like I said, I'm maybe I have a little bit of residual like awkwardness or residual insecurities about like being like a teenager who just loved Kurosawa movies. Because I say it's because I was a snob or whatever, but they're incredible fucking movies. But one of the things that I really love and latched onto in this viewing of this movie in particular was how one of the reasons why I'm kind of attracted to more foreign movies like that, and I'm more interested in seeing like movies that are not made in America or made from like the perspective of people in America, is because like it finds those deeper meanings, or it makes those deeper meanings and the themes and everything kind of come out in interesting ways. Like watching this movie, I was like that. Like it's a bureaucracy. It's a democratic society, a bureaucratic nightmare and everything. Like it's the same in any democracy. Like this is a staple of democracy and everything. Yeah. So even though the culture is wildly different and the time is wildly different, like, yeah, that's exactly how it still goes on and will still go on
right
forever. So I love that about it. I thought it was demonstrated really well.
Okay.
Yep.
So what kind of annoyed me in those last 45 minutes is the time between that moment and the end, when the playground is built and he's, he's there. I feel like it could have been condensed a little bit more. And maybe it's just, again, because I was very tired and very sleepy at the times.
Yeah.
It just moved very slowly, it felt like.
I could definitely see that, and I was pretty surprised that we had that much time left in the movie at that point, because it seems like it should, like that seems like it should be like the denouement of the movie, like that should be the resolution of everything, is them kind of reflecting on his life and like his coworkers and everyone coming to the realization that like, oh, this is actually real, like this he really did all these things, and everything, but. It does run a little long, but I think I didn't mind it hardly at all, really, because I feel like it really paints a distinctive picture for the movie as a whole. Like it really kind of brings together those themes of the movie of like this man, like it's the story of a man who is faced with his mortality and realizes that he has not done anything to leave a lasting impression or a legacy or anything.
Yeah. And
to be honest, like that's something that I think about a lot as a fucking 34-year-old man in Indianapolis. But also like it just kind of really hit home with me, and that's one of the reasons why I fucking podcast so much. But yeah, it really resonated with me in a pretty profound way, because it's not immediately this triumphant thing. It's not even really at the end a very triumphant thing, because in the moment we get that triumph of like them realizing like, oh my God, he did all these things. He knew that he had cancer, and like he knew that he didn't have a lot of time left, and he still did all of these things. And we're never gonna forget this. And then the next day it's like, oh nope, we're back to the same old, which I really respect that a lot, because it's very authentic. So I don't know, I really, really loved this ending sequence, this third act. But something that I forgot to mention in the non-spoiler section, another scene that I thought was really just, it was poignant and beautiful in a very in a more direct way than I would expect from a Kurosawa movie. Like, it's not very subtle, this particular part, but when he comes to the realization that, like, oh, he can still do things. He can still make an impression, or he can still leave something behind. When he comes to that realization, he runs off to go to the office, or to kind of refocus his life's ambition. He's in like a restaurant or a building, and like a crowd starts singing "Happy Birthday," and like I thought that was on paper it shouldn't work as well as it did, but it just I think it works for me because of the way the camera kind of plays a trick on us, because we see him coming toward the camera down the stairs, and there's a crowd of people that are like rushing up behind him on the landing of the stairs, singing "Happy Birthday," like very celebratory and everything. And in that moment, it's kind of like, oh, there's like, it's this not so subtle thing of happy birthday, like he's finally alive, like this is his birth and everything.
Yep.
But then a woman comes up the stairs and they're singing to her, and it has nothing to do with him. And it's just this interesting, I don't know how to articulate exactly what it is, but there's something about it that I found it. Maybe it's supposed to be humorous, and that's all. But I found humor and kind of a profoundness in that. I love that a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What'd you think of the kind of final sequence and the actual him on the swing, singing with the snow and everything?
Beautiful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's, I think Ebert says this in his review. It's like one of the most beautiful, most poignant shots of any movie, maybe ever. And it's hard to disagree. It kind of sums up almost the entire movie in one shot or one sequence.
Yeah. And with him singing, it's great. Just really want to just make this stupid joke. I don't know, but to be fair, and I do agree with that sentiment that it is one of the most profound and poignant scenes in film history. But also, you've got to take into account that I believe Ebert passed away before Grown Ups 2, so he did not get to see the deer peeing in the house scene.
Yeah.
So
he missed out on that. He might have had a different perspective.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so okay, I think, are we done talking about Ikiru?
Sure.
Okay. All right, well, let us know what you thought of Ikiru, and let's go into our review of Cléo from 5 to 7 from 1962.
This movie goes through some pretty predictable paces about their forbidden love, but I was never really very interested in the characters in Blade Runner. I didn't find it convincing. Instead, what impressed me in this film were the special effects, the wonderful use of optical trickery to show me a gigantic, imaginary Los Angeles, which in the vision of this movie has been turned into sort of a futuristic Tokyo. Great performance, and Fargo is the best movie the Coen brothers have ever made. A quirky.
Ben, do you want to read the plot summary, or should I?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, cool.
All right. Cléo from 5 to 7 from 1962, directed by Agnes Varda. Cléo, a singer and a hypochondriac, becomes increasingly worried that she might have cancer while awaiting test results from her doctor. So, Matt, this was your first Agnes Varda, right?
That is true.
Okay.
Yes.
What did you know about her going into this? What's your background with like the French New Wave and this era of French films?
Extraordinarily limited, next to no experience.
Matt, by the way, is wearing a beret and
I am
drinking wine and carrying a baguette.
Yes, I have like a little dog. Do they have little dogs? I don't know.
Sure. Everyone does.
Yeah. So,
she has a cat.
Yes,
she has several cats.
I did note it. Like this movie, I gotta say, some very, very good cat work in this movie. But I had next to no knowledge of Agnes Varda. I knew that you got I knew that you own the Criterion set with all of her movies?
All of them.
All of them. Okay.
Shorts and features.
Nice. Okay. And that's all I really knew. I don't know much about the French New Wave, or what it's kind of all about. Have we covered any French New Wave movies?
You could, I guess, say that Les Samurai was one of them. I forget now what year that came out. 65, maybe?
Maybe.
61. Who knows if there's like a device in our hands that could tell us this instantly.
Yep, 1967.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess that it still classifies, I guess, as a French New Wave film, but it's not as early as this one, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't have any real experience with it, and my kind of overall thoughts, what I thought was really interesting, first of all, and we can talk more about this, is how it's in black and white, but that opening scene is in color with the tarot card reading.
Yes.
I thought that was very interesting. And my kind of, in broad terms, I was really... I was impressed with the movie. I didn't really like it as much as I was hoping to be honest. But I think I got more excitement over the fact that it parallels, I was really excited that these were the two picks. Like, it does parallel, the movies parallel each other incredibly closely.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I felt like it took a little bit of a while to kind of get moving. I was excited that it was a 90-minute movie.
Yep.
And
you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And it is, it does well in terms of going on this character's journey. it's very similar to Ikiru. She's wandering the city, pending test results and stuff. Once she's actually out in the city and she's wandering and she's walking around, she has all of those encounters and everything. That's kind of when the movie kind of ramped up for me. But the whole point where she's at home and she has the people come visit her and they sing and like that kind of lost me a little bit. And then the movie kind of ramped up when she was going around the city. And then it wasn't until the park scene at the end of the movie that it kind of clicked with me a little bit more, and I got more enjoyment out of it.
Here's something else that's going to blow your mind. Mm-hmm. So on the Criterion box set, there's several special features. This is just the first of many plugs that I'll make for the box set.
Nice.
But I was watching it yesterday, and there's an interview that Agnes Varda does about like the making of it. And she talks about that park scene, and she says that since it's in black and white, they used a green filter for the camera lens, which makes the green grass appear brighter. And she wanted it to almost look like snow, like an almost surreal kind of snowy effect.
Jeez.
So, huh. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Nice. Yeah, and we can. I don't know. Well, we'll probably talk more about that. Her scenes with the man at the end of the movie, a little bit later. But overall, I was into it, but not as into it as I was hoping to. Hoping to be. How did you feel about Cléo from 5 to 7? And also, what made you pick it?
So, I watched this for the first time last year, probably around the same time of the year, maybe earlier, and I really enjoyed it. And it was the only Agnes Varda movie that I had ever seen. So, I bought the box set based off of that alone, and just knowing that the rest of her work was pretty well acclaimed. And I forget how many movies I'm into the box set at this point. I'm going in chronological order, but I'm really enjoying it so far. But I loved the movie the first time I saw it. I didn't know anybody else that had seen it, so I just wanted an excuse to talk about it, really. It is a visual movie. There are some really nice shots, but I wouldn't say it's like an 8.5 level of like artistry behind all of the shots, you know. It is very well made and very well put together, and it looks great. But it just doesn't have those kind of flourishes like, you know, like 8.5, like which I would say at this point may be the best looking film that we've covered so far.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So I really dug the story. I liked Cléo as a character, and just every rewatch that I've had of this has just made me appreciate it even more. It's kind of an all-timer for me.
Nice. That's awesome, and I definitely appreciate it. Even if it didn't really hit with me as hard as I would have liked to, it's something I might revisit at some point. I'm sure I will at some point, and kind of probably have a new appreciation of it. But something that I do think was done very well with this movie is the way that it transitions from Cleo's kind of despair and melancholy over her, you know, illness and impending results and everything. And really, once she meets the man in the park, like, that is lifted so vividly and clearly, and it transitions into a completely different tone, and like it becomes like this very charming movie in the last 20 or so minutes, or 15 minutes. And I kind of wanted more of that.
Yeah.
But what I got out of it was pretty damn good.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What I like a lot about this is that the story is, I wouldn't say bad. I wouldn't even say okay. I think it's a great story. It's just maybe not the main draw here, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I was impressed with is just the way. So Agnes Varda also did a bunch of documentaries, and the way that she films this is almost kind of documentary-like in a lot of moments. It's, hang on. I brought, this is the book that comes with the box set.
Nice.
It's really cool. There's a line that I'm going to read for it and about this. Okay. Like so many of Varda's films, it is always two things at once. A vibrant, on-the-street study of Paris in the early 60s, mainly the narrow streets, shops, and gardens of the left bank's 14th arrondissement, and an interior portrait of a woman's fears and contradictions. So I really enjoyed that kind of documentary, kind of look at just this snapshot of Paris at the time. And there's some moments that I feel like couldn't have been planned out ahead of time that worked really well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a scene where she's overhearing a man and woman kind of having I don't even want to say it's a fight. They're just kind of bickering about like sleeping over.
Yeah.
And I found that pretty compelling in terms of her being kind of a fly on the wall and like kind of witnessing or being more cognizant of other people living when she is facing her own kind of mortality and the doom that she feels of her possible impending death, essentially.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well done, and it's stuff that's sprinkled throughout the whole movie throughout it.
Yeah. I forget if it was Ebert or this Criterion book that said it, but they talk about how kind of the first half of the movie is all about how everybody sees Cléo and how she sees herself.
Yeah.
And then the second half is really how she sees everyone else around her. And I really enjoyed the way that it doesn't even really underline that theme. It's just a very natural way of developing her as a character and just this thesis statement for the movie.
Absolutely. And to that point, like there are moments in the movie where a couple of distinct sequences, I think, where she is like walking and it's like she's walking through a crowd or she's walking down the street, down the sidewalk and everything. And like the camera just like shows like it's rapid fire showing us just images of people just staring at her and everything. And I thought that was really striking.
Yeah, it's a real like in your face kind of a way of depicting that. Yeah.
And I don't want to get into spoilers really because I don't know if there's really a way to spoil this, but there's one line that really stood out to me and kind of I found really profound and kind of beautiful in the way it was written and shot, but kind of at the end of the movie when they're on the bench and they're talking, she and the man, they're talking and she says something like you need to give me your address or else we'll forget. And they are swapping info and she says we have so little time, and that this is this is a close up shot of the two of them on the bench, and she says we have so little time. And then the camera either cuts or pulls back to a wide shot, and then she says, "We have so much time, or we have all this time, or whatever." And just like, very memorable line. Yeah, we have all the time, whatever. But it's just I feel like that's a really beautiful sentiment to kind of leave the movie on. Although it doesn't leave the movie on that sense. Like, I wish, one of my big issues with the movie is, like, I wish it had ended 5 minutes early. And, because there's a scene where, like, I won't give it away, but, like, a character comes up and gives her information, and then they walk, and that's the end of the movie. And I'm like, it would have been much more to my liking and my sensibilities to leave that open-ended and leave the movie on them rather than on her knowledge of the new information she just got.
Okay.
Yeah. How'd you feel about the ending?
Well, this will blow your mind, actually.
Ooh.
That this is another thing that Agnes Varda talks about in that making of documentary interview, whatever. So the very last shot where they're walking towards the camera, the camera's on a dolly, right?
Okay.
And if you look in the background as they get far enough back, you can see the dolly tracks in the shot.
Oh, really?
Which I hadn't even noticed until
Jeez.
I saw that part.
Okay.
But she said that she noticed it when she was editing the film, and they went back and tried to reshoot it, and the chemistry just wasn't there between the two.
Oh, interesting.
So she left it in on purpose, knowing that those dollies are there.
Wow.
So maybe in another world there would have been it could have ended earlier, but
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. How did the ending sit with you and everything?
Yeah, I no complaints from me.
Nice.
I can understand why you would want it to end where it did. That's not insane or anything, but I'm okay with ending it where it did. Kind of that uncertainty between the two of them, whether they actually will ever see each other again or just what the future will hold. Yeah.
I haven't seen these movies, but it kind of that scene, the sequence with her and the man, that segment of the movie feels to me like it feels like what I think the Before trilogy is supposed to be, or is, because I haven't seen them.
It's great that you mentioned that.
Okay.
Because I was since watching, like in between watching this for the first time and the second time, I watched the Before trilogy, and I was going to text you and tell you, hey, if you have time, watch the Before trilogy after watching this, because there is literally a scene in Before Sunrise where Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy get on a rail car and have a conversation with each other. So
Okay.
that was just one of, like, yeah, that whole ending scene between the two of them, I felt like had the Before trilogy written all over it.
Wow.
So I'm glad that you picked up on that.
Yeah.
Definitely watch the Before trilogy. Either way.
Yeah. I it's high on my list. I'm hoping that I'll be able to watch it sooner rather than Linklater. Yeah, I have them on Blu-ray, so I'll watch them soon.
Yeah. The other movie that this reminded me of, and I don't know if this is a stretch, maybe not, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just with all the scenes of Brad Pitt driving around around Hollywood.
Nice.
And the driving scenes in this.
I could definitely see that. Definitely see that. Yeah. Yep. Also, when she throws the cat food at the bad guy and it just smashes her face, and then the
flamethrowers.
Yeah, the flamethrower. No, but yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are many more influences that are owed to this movie, but those were the two that stood out to me. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I am definitely gonna have to watch the Before trilogy. And I highly recommend watching Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I appreciated, and I don't know if you had picked up on this, but nearly every male character that you meet or even hear about is either like an idiot or an asshole or just not a very pleasant person, with the exception of the guy at the end.
Right. It didn't really consciously register with me, but now that you mentioned that, like, it's definitely like flying up. It's making me recontextualize it.
Yeah.
The scene, the scene at her home. First, her lover comes and she's kind of, she's distant toward him, and he leaves. He's distant toward her. I don't know what the kind of, I don't remember or know what the like kind of implication of that was. But then the two men come in and they start singing and everything. Were they working on a new music for her?
Yes.
Okay. Also another interesting parallel. This and
piano.
Ikiru have musical numbers with pianos.
That end very sadly.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Just wow.
Where the main character sings.
Right. Just God. That's so awesome.
I wonder if Agnes, Varda, and Kurosawa were best friends.
That's a good question. But I did notice now I do notice that in terms of the depictions of men and everything. How'd you feel about that extended sequence in the house with the men singing and working with her and everything?
It's not perfect. I'll give it that. I really like the set design of it.
Just wish there was a deer running in there peeing all over everything.
Yeah. She really missed the mark there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just kind of helps to color Cleo's world and just like what she has to put up with. And it gives you extra perspective on just who she is and what other people think of her. So it kind of fits more into that thesis of how other people see her, you know?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm on board with that. The way that they are kind of buffoonish or cartoonish, especially the one guy, the second guy that comes up, he just
with or without the glasses?
With the glasses.
Okay.
Yeah. It just like that seemed like it veered off way too much into this kind of weird farcical kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like with them, like with the big syringe thing and all that, that felt like a little out of place to me. Or maybe it's part of French New Wave that I'm just not aware of. But the actual, when the movie shifts and she's singing and it shifts to the, like her alone singing with like tears in her eyes and tears streaming down her face, like that I thought was it might, with the exclusion of kind of the whole sequence at the end with the man in the park, that singing scene was probably the best scene of the movie for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Something that struck me about it as well was, and I think it may be because of those scenes where people are staring at her and we're getting the close up and everything, but that kind of really made this. It made that encounter with the man at the park. It made it feel like there was, at least briefly, a sense of just impending doom. Like I thought for sure that like something horrible was going to happen, and it just felt very kind of cathartic when it turns out like, oh, it's a meet cute thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How'd you feel about that? The tone of it.
That is an interesting thought. I didn't really think of like if it would have had like a dark ending or something.
And I think that kind of just shows my ignorance of French New Wave, because I don't know, like I don't know anything about it, so I'm like, is this going to be like a fucking snuff film?
I mean, I am definitely no expert on French New Wave, but I don't know. Another thing that I appreciated about the movie, and another mirror to Ikiru, I'm real glad that that Cleo and the man don't end up romantically involved by the end of the movie. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but it's not clear. So I appreciate that.
And that, I kind of think, because there's clearly like a romantic connection between them. There's a romantic chemistry, and it's implied that they'll have like a romantic thing, possibly. I don't know. But that was something that kind of, because I watched Ikiru first.
Yeah.
And going from Ikiru and watching Cleo, it kind of felt like by the ending, as much as I like that kind of meet cute, that chemistry laden encounter with him and her, it kind of felt like the movie was saying, and maybe not saying directly, but like it kind of felt like while Ikiru's kind of main thesis was like, oh, this man is going through his life knowing that it's finite and he is determined to make something of his life. Whereas with Cleo from 5 to 7, it kind of feels like this woman is potentially at the end of her life and she doesn't know what she's searching for or what meaning she's going to have in it. But, oh, there's a man here. And, and you know.
He's going to make it all better.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
She's just a high-strung businesswoman who doesn't have time for a relationship. And this man is just gonna take all of her problems away. It's not like that, but like it kind of seems like, I don't know. While I appreciate the extreme change in her kind of behavior, like because the film and her performance like livens, like that is the one time in this movie that she has any semblance of like livelihood in her performance. Like she is very lively and very engaged with him. Mm-hmm. And it kind of feels like that's great. I love that tone and how it rises to that chemistry that's between them. But it also kind of makes, and maybe it's because I watched it in the shadow of Ikiru, but it kind of feels like it's fine. Like, I kind of wish that there was something more to get her out of that doom and gloom that she went throughout the rest of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
You're such a feminist.
I know. Yep. and I don't want it to be like this soapbox thing where it's like, no, man, they're doing that and all that. Like, cause obviously it's not that way. It kind of just felt like it was less profound than the other movie I saw about a character with cancer. Yeah. So I don't know. Anything else?
Probably, but
the cats. So we see one cat at the tarot card reading, and then when she's at home, we see like 2 or 3, I think.
Yeah.
And not only are they cats, but those fucking things are kittens.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. And that's another thing about women in film. Like, there do not need to be a crazy cat. I'm kidding. That's not a soapbox I'm going to get on. But I adored it. They're good kitties.
Matt, does this go on your great cat movies list?
Yes. I think so. I think I'll put it just below Cats and Dogs.
Uh-huh. And Cats.
And well, only the butthole edition of Cats.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I'm very much a stickler for authenticity.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, so I think I would. Do you want to do ratings and great movies?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I give it a thumbs up. It was definitely a good movie. I don't think I'd put it on my great movies list, to be honest. Yeah. And to replace it,
let's watch the Before trilogy, and then you can you can make a ruling.
Oh yeah, I think I would preemptively say that almost for sure the Before trilogy in its entirety would be on it. But I was gonna see, because I don't know. I think, is Y Tu Mamá También on?
No.
It's not?
No.
Really? Oh, man. Okay. So, tentatively, I would put the Before trilogy. But since I have not seen that and cannot make that statement, my replacement for Cléo from 5 to 7 is Y Tu Mama Tambien, which is a just beautiful, incredible movie. So, yeah.
Okay.
How about you?
Yes. Thumbs up would go on the list.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
And I would say if any of the listeners out there liked this, then definitely check out the Criterion box set.
Nice.
It is well worth your money.
I really wish that I had the time or that Criterion allowed us this time because right now there's a 24-hour 50% off flash sale on Criterion.com.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yep. And
you shouldn't have told me that.
I know. Because I've been kind of looking at it a little bit. I'm like, I can't justify anything. But then I'm like, that Fast Times at Ridgemont High movie just edition just came out or is coming out. I don't know. So if it's coming out, then I don't think so. It wouldn't be available. But anyway. Yeah, so that ends at noon Eastern time tomorrow, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say I'm kind of surprised that this is the only Agnes Varda movie on this list.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think to ask.
Yeah, because in his essay, I mean, he wrote a couple essays just about Agnes Varda.
Oh, wow.
But he mentions it in this movie, just how nice and lovely he thought that she was, and how much he enjoyed her company and her films. So I'm excited to get into her later work because she never really stopped working. I mean, her last movie was in, I think, 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She did that. It was nominated for Best Documentary called Faces Places.
Oh, okay.
So, and I never saw that one. So I'm excited to check out her documentaries because I haven't made it that far yet.
Okay. So judging from the place that you're at now in her filmography, since this was the first Agnes Varda movie that I've ever seen, what would you recommend for me to watch next? Not guaranteeing I'll be able to, but
so, well, I mean, you can borrow it if you want.
Okay, nice.
So far, I have only seen 3 features of hers.
Okay.
This one and 2 others. This is her second feature that she directed.
Gotcha.
In between that, there's been like probably 4 or 5 shorts. Okay. But they're all the most recent one that I watched is called Les Bonheur. I don't know the pronunciation and I don't know the English translation for it. But it's a very good, very colorful movie. Yeah, Les Bonheur.
Okay.
LEBONHEUR.
Okay. Interesting.
So, yeah. Also a 79-minute movie.
Oh, nice. So, okay. Yes. Cool. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for this edition of the Ebert's Great Movies List review series. It's part 7. Now we are going to give our selections for part 8, and we are going to make a big announcement about part 8.
I would say it's a tiny announcement.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, so for part 8, we are going to be reviewing not 2 movies, but 3 movies, with the third one being selected by the Obsessive Viewer's own Tiny, who will be joining us for those reviews. So this is very exciting. This is unprecedented in this review
Plot
series.
twist.
Yes. So I have Tiny's selection. I will save that for after we both give ours. But Ben, do you want to give your...
Should we give his first in case, in the very off chance that it's something that one of us could pick?
If I will say this, he did give me 2 choices.
Okay.
So on the off chance that we both select, no, because I know definitely I didn't select it, so we'll be good.
Okay.
Yeah. So Ben, what is your next selection?
So we are gonna go from Kurosawa to his hero, John Ford.
Ooh.
And there's a couple of his on this list, I think, but one that I have some thoughts on.
Okay.
It is from 1956, The Searchers, with John Wayne.
Nice. Okay. Nice. I'm very excited about that. Because I know that you have very strong opinions about that. And
you can say that.
Yeah, and it's obviously a blind spot for me, so I am very excited for that. Nice. Okay. So The Searchers is Ben's pick.
Streaming on HBO Max.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. And then my pick, which I don't know why I'm bringing it up on my phone because I know what it is, but it is available to stream, I believe, on Criterion and HBO Max and the usual places, but it is 1928's The Circus. By Charlie Chaplin.
Excellent.
One of the main reasons is because we're reviewing 3 movies. This next one in The Circus is like 74 minutes long.
Okay.
And also, but that's the kind of jokey reason why. But really, it's 72 minutes long. But really, the specific reason why I picked The Circus is because as I was watching Cléo from 5 to 7, I was sitting there thinking, like, I mean, we just reviewed 2 movies about cancer, so like I need a comedy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Charlie Chaplin. I'm gonna do that. So my pick is The Circus.
Awesome.
From 1928.
That is one of his that I have not seen.
Oh,
I've seen a handful of his, but not that one.
That's awesome. I'm so glad because it's one that I haven't seen either, and like I was very tempted to be like, maybe we can watch one that I've seen. But no, I want to broaden my horizons with that. And I don't own it on Blu-ray. I might use that Criterion sale as a reason to buy it. So are you ready for Tiny's pick?
I'm ready.
All right. Man, what would have been really cool is if I would have had him record him. Man, I didn't even think of that. But anyway, so I gave Tiny a list and he looked into it and he was wondering, or he wasn't wondering. He selected 2 movies and, I'll just read some of the text and everything. So I gave him, poor Tiny. I feel compelled to apologize to him.
You didn't give him the whole list to choose from?
I did.
Okay.
Well, most of the list. I have on the notes that I have for the episodes that we record. I have like a list that I copied and pasted of like most of the movies on the list. So like there are like a few that the formatting didn't work out, so I had to delete them from the list. But like I gave him a list of 300 and I think I just gave him 350 movies. All from the list, and the ones that we've already covered are in bold. Okay. So I just gave him 4 screenshots of. Anyway, it was a whole thing. So he said, "Do the Right Thing" and "Paths of Glory" are 2 that jumped out to me. I've always meant to see them. Spike Lee was interviewed on NPR the other day, and it made me remember that I've never seen what's supposed to be his best movie. And I've been on a bit of a historical kick lately, so Paths of Glory sounds good, and it's an early Kubrick movie that I've never seen. So you guys can decide between those 2. So I sent this to him, and I was really proud of this. As much as I'd probably prefer to do the right thing and pick the Spike Lee movie, I will have to follow some paths of glory toward streaming services because the Kubrick movie is available on Amazon Prime. I'm an idiot. So Tiny's selection for part 8 of the Ebert's Great Movies List review series on Obsessive Viewer is 1957's Paths of Glory, which is available to stream on Prime Video. So there you have it. Your homework for next time is to watch The Searchers on HBO Max, The Circus on HBO Max as well, and Paths of Glory on Amazon Prime. Yeah, okay. Well, okay, we're going to close this episode with a potpourri section. For those of you who are new to the show, potpourri is a section of the podcast where we kind of wind down and we talk about what we're looking forward to, what we're excited about, what we've seen, whatever we want, as long as it smells good, kind of to break down the episode at the end. So, Ben, I don't have anything for Potpourri, but I will once I'm done talking. But do you want to get us kicked off with your Potpourri segment for this episode of the Obsessive Viewer podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet.
So which would you rather learn more about? The Netflix movie Malcolm and Marie, or the HBO Max Warner Brothers whatever movie The Little Things?
I think I'll go Malcolm and Marie, specifically because The Little Things is leaving HBO Max here in a day. So if for some reason, if I'm enticed to see it because I haven't watched it yet, I'll be disappointed that I won't be able to.
I think you'll be okay with missing it.
Okay.
All right. So Malcolm and Marie is on Netflix. Directed by Sam Levinson, stars John David Washington and Zendaya. Is it Zendaya or Zendaya?
Zendaya, I believe.
Let's call the whole thing off. So, and that's it. It's just the two of them. It was shot, directed, written, I think, in quarantine.
Okay.
It's a bottle episode of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So John David Washington plays this auteur, basically. And Zendaya is his girlfriend, and they are, as the film opens, they're coming home from the world premiere of his newest movie, which got really good reviews, and he comes home very excited about it. And so the whole movie is this clash between the two of them. These arguments keep coming up, and then just their past keeps getting brought up, and the way that they deal with it and argue about it is the entirety of the movie.
Okay.
So both the performances are very good. The thing that I did not like about it is that you can tell that Sam Levinson, who I am unfamiliar with, I'll admit, but he just kind of felt compelled to shoehorn these digs at critics into the film. So, like I said, he's a director, and he has all of these grievances against critics and how black filmmakers are perceived in the media and how they're reviewed by critics, and how he feels he is being portrayed, even with a positive review of these critics for his film. And that if that would have been taken out, I think the film would have been a little bit better, maybe not a whole lot. I found myself asking, the whole time, almost, they do have periods where they get along and they're okay together, and their chemistry is really good throughout, even when they're yelling at each other. But I found myself wondering, why do I want to see these people work it out? Why do I care about them together as a couple? And that is one of the biggest things against it. I mean, it looks great. The performances, like I said, are really great. But it's just those script problems that really hold it back, really.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting, because I like Zendaya and I really like John David Washington. Is there, and this might be spoilers, but is there a scene where he is upset over the length of time that from him ordering hot sauce and going into a kitchen? Stupid Tenet joke. I actually really like that line in Tenet.
There isn't, but they do go into turnstiles at one point, and it's shot in black and white, but the turnstiles are in blue and red. And also Kenneth Branagh pops in for a moment to do some groveling.
That tracks. That tracks. Nice. I'll probably check it out. I'm very curious about it. Yeah, I don't know.
It's
I'll check it out.
the main thing that I had heard about it and the lead up to it was this quote unquote controversy about the age gap between the two of them.
Yeah.
Which, yes, that is on its face kind of weird, but the film justifies it.
Okay.
And I'm not going to give away why, but it justifies why they're together.
Okay.
So I didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, they're both
And it's-
adults, so
Yes, absolutely. And it's not even like a super sexual movie. Yeah, it could have been gross for sure, but I didn't feel like it was gross.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Well, do you want me to do my pooper?
Sure.
Okay. So I don't really have much, but I will say, on Tower Junkies here, probably in a few weeks, I don't know, Tiny and I are going to do an episode about the Outsider novel and miniseries on HBO. And I have watched 2 episodes of it, and I like it. It's really good. That's about it. I don't know what else. I've watched Family Guy against my better judgment. Yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, I got nothing. Yeah.
You can go and watch the Before trilogy and insert your thoughts
Yes.
into this segment.
Yes, I will. I really liked the Before trilogy. Yeah, I will definitely do that. Yeah. That was not a drop in. Yeah. Yeah, I don't, what else? I don't think I really have much else in the way of potpourri. I have not watched that much stuff, like, at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I need to have something.
Should we talk about Grown Ups too?
Fuck no. So I watched Modern Family.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I can't let this go.
Mm-hmm.
So I recently re-listened to the Summer of Sandler series.
Oh God.
And
2014 podcasting. Oh.
in the episode where you guys discuss Grown Ups 2, one Matthew Hurt mentions,
Oh fuck.
I kind of liked Grown Ups 2 better than Grown Ups 1.
Oh, okay.
And that, I feel like, should be litigated as a crime against humanity.
To be fair, I think the comparison, I have not gone back and checked the records or anything. I am certain that I probably said something like that.
I have receipts.
Okay.
Just, this is where you do the homework and insert the clip from that episode.
Yes.
Where
I
you
might
say that.
actually do that. But I think I tolerated it more than Grown Ups.
The first one?
No
The first
way.
one.
Matthew.
No
The first
way.
one was so offensively a cash-in, like they did nothing.
This
to
one's
that
a
movie.
sequel.
I'm
It is,
shocked. I'm
but
shocked.
there's some like little bit of there's a little bit more of a plot and effort to it. Like
In the second one?
in the second one,
Matthew.
Come on.
Yeah,
Did you
just-
watch them out of order and confuse them?
Yeah, because there was
There is
absolutely
a
no plot to this
In the
one.
first one, there is no. This is a series.
It was an excuse to
of-
go back
It's an
there.
excuse and a series of poorly constructed.
but also to put it into context, I kind of feel like that's akin to saying, you know, this is going to be crass. This diarrhea I had is I liked it a little bit better than the constipation I had yesterday.
It's like saying, hey, George W. Bush was no Trump.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Man, yeah, I don't know. How do those episodes hold up, by the way?
There was one that had some audio issues, but other than that,
yeah.
solid.
Okay.
Classic.
Cool.
Classic Obsessive Viewer.
Yes. Oh God. 2014. That was, I can't count. 6, 7 years ago?
7.
Fuck, 7 years ago. about time to pack it in. I'm joking. Yeah, I did have, and this will be the final thing, and then we can end this episode. But I did have this really, I don't know how to describe it. A thought that I had that I would never in a million, like there is no reality where this would be a thing that I would do. But I thought, what if I scraped everything about myself away from the internet, including every podcast? Like, what if one day it all just disappeared? Yeah, maybe I thought that after I watched Ikiru.
I thought you were going to say after you watched Grown Ups too.
Oh, right.
I wouldn't blame you.
Yes. But yeah, I don't know. I would never do that, but yeah. Anyway. Okay, so we've got our assignments for next time. I don't know what's coming up next on the podcast. I need to reach out with Fecus and figure out something to record with him. Kirsten and I might record something. I don't know, but coming up after March 15th, we're going to do an Oscars rundown episode, nominations episode, so that should be fun. And yeah, then coming soon, Ebert's Great Movies List, Part 8, featuring One Tiny Ramian. So look forward to that. And before we go, Ben, your work, do you want to plug anything that you've done, like the reviews you've posted on Obsessive Viewer, or your Midwest Film Journal series on the Happy Madison Productions?
Sure.
Your Happy Valley essays.
Obsessive Viewer, let's see, I have reviewed Palmer, the Apple TV movie, with Justin Timberlake. I reviewed The Map of Tiny Perfect Things on Amazon Prime, and I reviewed Judas and the Black Messiah, which is on HBO Max. Out of those, watch Judas and the Black Messiah.
Sweet.
Happy Valley, we are truly in the valley.
God.
As of this recording today, the Zookeeper review just posted, and next week is Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star.
Oh,
which,
God.
I mean, until yesterday, may have been the worst movie I've ever seen. And it still may be. We'll see.
Wow.
God. Yeah. After that, I'm blanking. Just more garbage. Just know that.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, you're doing the Lord's work there. Oh, God, I wish I had made a note of your AIM handle from the beginning. Lazarus something.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it again for the listening audience?
Lazarus HP05. Just.
Okay.
Don't ask.
Is the HP Harry Potter?
Yes.
Okay.
It's because, okay.
No judgment.
It's because at the time people said that I looked like Harry Potter.
Okay. I can kind
Whatever.
of see that. Okay. And then Lazarus, is it from the Bible?
No.
Oh, okay.
So only 90s kids would understand. There used to be a department store called Lazarus, which quickly went defunct in the late 90s or early 2000s. And so my last name is Sears Lazarus. Hilarious. Lazarus was my nickname, I think, freshman year of high school. Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening.
This is my last appearance. Thanks, everyone.
That's actually pretty clever. I don't remember or want to say what my AIM name was. I think I changed it a few times. Yeah, no.
Probably for the best.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, well, once again, check us out on Patreon, where you can get more of this kind of stuff at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And, yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy.
When you're born, they say like, oh, okay, what streaming services will you have? And that is...
It's like a Brave New World situation.
Exactly. So you can only have access to one streaming service for your entire life. Which one do you pick? And why?
Okay. That caveat there at the end kind of cements it for the rest of my life. I should probably also mention, I don't know if this matters, but I still have an Apple TV Plus subscription, and I still have not paid for it since it was launched.
Right.
They just keep extending the free trial for everyone. So I've got it free until July now.
Nice.
The Obsessive Viewer podcast is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to ObsessiveViewer.com/OV archive. You can also like our Facebook page and join the OV Facebook group at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer. And follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer and at ObsessiveTiny. And follow our recurring co-hosts at I am Mike White, that's me, at R.A. Feckus, and at Burger_Lurker. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com, T-E-E, public.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberInIrvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and on Twitter at OVAnthologyPod. You can also find Tower Junkies, a podcast where Matt and Tiny share their love of all things Stephen King and his magnum opus, The Dark Tower series, at towerjunkiespod.com and at towerjunkiespod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. The theme music for The Obsessive Viewer comes courtesy of the band Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Kitty!